Welcome back. As Nigeria's security challenges continue to degenerate, the Northern State Governors and Traditional Rulers Council have called for the establishment of state police as the solution to the problem. They made the call after reviewing the security situation in the north during their meeting, which was held in Abuja. Reading the communique after the meeting at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel, chairman of the forum and governor of Plateau State, Simon Bakolalong, said the meeting reviewed the security situation in the north and other matters relating to its development and resolved to support the amendment of the constitution to accommodate the establishment of state police. The north and the south finally agreeing after years of disagreement. We are now being joined in the studio by a public affairs analyst and a friend of the house, of course, Mr. Jide Ojo. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Abuja.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I am fascinated by your Ishiagu this morning.
We are promoting one Nigerian culture.
Absolutely. And virtually, we have joining us security expert and MD of Beacon Consulting, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, who is joining us from Bauchi. Dr. Kabiru, good morning, and it's a pleasure to have you join us virtually this morning. And we also have joining us the Special Advisor on Media and Public Communications to Zamfara State Governor, a friend of theirs, my friend and elder brother, Mr. Zalani Bapa. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning also, Mr. Zalani.
Good morning. And
we would start, Mr. Ojo, from the studio. As the intro finally suggests, finally it appears every section of this country seems to be on the table with regards to the issue of the state police. In a quick introductory remark, should this have happened much earlier than this? Do you see any chance that with the remaining days left in the life of this administration and distracted by the so much politicking that is going on, that we can make any kind of progress as far as this latest call is concerned?
Thank you very much. You see, it's good that we are now behaving like a united Nigeria. For so many years, I recall this call for state police was strident more in southern Nigeria, and it was when the north wasn't in support that the southwest governor had to establish the Amotekun Corps some 3 years ago. But it's good that the end has finally come onto roost, and we have now seen reliance on federal police has not been very helpful. You could see the infighting between the Police Service Commission and even the Office of the Inspector General of Police, which has led to the exit of Muslim Smith just yesterday. This should never have happened. You have a presidential order, recruit 10,000 police constables every year since 2016. Now, for 2 consecutive periods, this could not be done because of infighting between 2 agencies of government. The Police Service Commission is established by the Constitution. You have the Office of IG, which is also a constitutional establishment. But by and large, those of us who have rooted for the establishment of state police, I have written a number of opinions in my column in The Punch on this matter. That look, you cannot be claiming to be a federation and then you have a centralized governance system. It does not work. If it were to be Benin Republic or Togo or Sao Tome and Principe or Equatorial Guinea, which is just like 500,000 population, yeah, you can be talking of that.
I would like you to hold your thought on that, Mr. Ojo, as we bring in Dr. Kabiru. Good morning, Dr. Kabiru. I'm sure you have listened to the opening remarks of Mr. Ojo, and I haven't followed this security situation. Does this suggestion now that has been embraced by the northern governors and leaders, does it simply address the security challenges? Haven't made these pronouncements. What are the practical steps that must happen, until we come to a point where we begin to see state police in our streets?
have this unity police at the federal level. And I'm aware that in the Senate that is being chaired by the Senate.
We seem to have
that
a bit
included
of
the for state police. The practical steps beyond even the rhetoric that Joe mentioned from the southern governors, and then recently from the northern governors.
We seem to have a bit of technical challenge here with Dr. Kabiru. We would come back to you to take your thoughts. I would like Mr. Zalani to also respond to this. You are coming from one of the states that have been bedeviled by serious criminal activities, and it does appear that the federal policing system has not done much, to arrest the situation in your state. How would you view these recent pronouncements and supports coming from groups all over the country?
Thank you very much. Personally, do not like to go into the politics of whether it is desirable to have state police or not. But actually, I am in a state where we are with serious security challenges needs to be addressed by whoever is supposed to be addressed. In a situation in Nigeria, you have more than 200 people, and it that we have only 400. I think this is unimaginable. And that is why when you have a problem, the federal government always brings in the military to come in and assist the police. Now, how much is the military? How many personnel are there in the Nigerian? Somebody is telling me not up to 250,000. So right now in my state, we have 14 local governments. We have 147 wards. We have about 4 million people who are being challenged by serious security breaches, and just an estimation, person said more than 400 AK-47 was brought into Zamfara state by just one person. And you can imagine the enormous amount of thousands of weapons that are proliferating within the state environs. And in the last 10 years of the banditry in Zamfara state, we lost at least 25,000 persons who are parents. I mean, not only young people, parents, 25,000. And we have orphans who are almost 30,000 now. And we have a lot of IDPs proliferating all over the state. And this is where the police is working, the military is also working. So you can see that there is the desirability for thinking outside the box. Because what we have today, the police is overstretched, the military is overstretched, and of course, there must be a solution to this problem. Even states, according to the debates that are going on, have no rights to even state police. I think the federal government needs that the United Nations stipulation of one police to 400 people we strive towards achieving that. We may not reach it very soon, but I think if we strive to increase our police intake, we increase our training of our police, and then the military, will find out that we are some of these problems. And of course, the security, because the intelligence is very, very important to the solution of our problems, not only using the arms. So this is my take. In a situation where in Nigeria we are being faced, there is no state in Nigeria that is not being faced with security challenges, only that some states have their own bigger problem than others, and Zamfara state is in the forefront of the states where we have these problems. And indeed, that is why the state government is taking its own steps to ensure that it increases the presence of security operatives and also even assist the indigents to find ways of defending themselves.
Okay. Well, it seems now that Dr. Kabir is able to talk to us. If you can hear me, Dr. Kabir, would like to get your thoughts on the move to create state police.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
You can go ahead, Dr. Kabir.
Okay. Please confirm if you heard my earlier statements.
No, it was not clear earlier, so you can just go ahead now.
Okay. Earlier on, I made the point that beyond the rhetoric by governors, and I was referring to the statement by Jide that southern governors supported the creation of state police. I don't think they practically supported it. I think they were being political, and I have my reason. I made the point that there is a Senate committee that is currently reviewing the Constitution, and there were submissions from different parts of the country. I'm not aware that the Governors Forum, either the Southern Governors Forum or the Governors Forum as a whole, did submit that review, knowing very well that only we can create a state police through a constitutional review. Now, going forward, what I would hope to see is a practical step by the governors talking to their senators, talking to the members of House of Rep, telling them to start the process of constitutional review to create state police. Anything short of that, honestly, is political and rhetorical.
Very interesting. Now, Mr. Jide, just as he has mentioned, some constitutional lawyers have said that the move to create state police is null if it does not have constitutional backing. How do you see this going, or where do you see this heading?
Well, where there's a will, there's a way. The good news is that if governors have now suddenly realized the importance of having state police, it's not late in the day. Yes, once constitutional amendment exercise is being wrapped up, having been voted on at the national level, and I believe many state houses of assembly are making returns already on those ones that have made the cut. But even the 9 months or thereabout to the exit of this administration, it's something that could still be fast-tracked. We've seen constitutional amendment done expeditiously. Where the will is there, like my good friend Dr. Adamu said, if an executive bill from the president is sent to the National Assembly today or this month, as the National Assembly resumes, and it says, I want this treated urgently, even if that is the sole bill that would be amended, I'm very sure this can be done even in 6 months. Because all you need to do is, we've seen bills passed by the, I recall the, what's it called, the minimum wage bill that was passed by the, I think House of Reps or Senate in less than a month. Although the consequential amendment by the other chamber took a while, but it tells you where there is a will and purpose, you can get it done. And since the governors are in control of their state houses of assembly, they will ensure that once the National Assembly passes it and is sent to the state for consequential amendment, since most of them are on the same page. But I need us to be aware of something. If we thought it through, what the model and mechanism of this will be.
I was going to come to that because you talk about rushing this bill and it is possible in 6 months. In the light of talking it through and harmonizing position, because there will be overlapping, there will be areas where their responsibility will overlap with that of the federal police. There needs to be a clearly thought out procedures of who hands over what and how they work together in joint areas of operation, or who takes care of those pockets of ungoverned spaces. Is this something we can honestly harmonize and have pass in 6 months?
It is. What I'm saying, once it's an executive bill, you get, If it's an executive bill, the National Assembly is coming back from recess. We know the campaigns will start, but nevertheless, governance will not cease. So if the Office of Attorney General drafts a very comprehensive, and this is something you can borrow ideas from other jurisdictions to say these are federal offenses upon which the federal government will have exclusive jurisdiction. These are state offenses upon which this. But what I'm even trying to point our attention to, apart from having the bill, this administration of Buhari cannot implement it. That's one. Two, I feel that there is a clause that should be in that bill if it eventually gets drafted and sponsored by the president, that every state should be allowed to establish their own at their own pace, so that it's not like everybody must comply immediately, because states are differently challenged. No, not even challenged. The resources available to states are not equal. Zamfara State may not have the money to establish state police immediately, whereas Lagos, who has actually been funding the Nigerian police by almost 50% of their operational costs coming from the Lagos state government, or that of Rivers or Delta or even Kano, can be ready to establish that. That's one. Two, we cannot solve the problem of insecurity without technology. You see, yes, we can even have 1 million policemen at the federal and state level. If you do not, ensure that they are well resourced, that there are, you have facilities, supporting facilities, like forensic, like laboratory, like drones, like, CCTV cameras, like scanners, and several other, technological devices that can be deployed to help in the fight against crime. You will just have men on boots, and they will be slaughtered by bandits in droves. So you need to have the technology component of, and this will cost a lot of resources, actually. So we need to think it through, but whether this administration does it or not, I'm sure it's going to be one of the high points of the campaigns that is going to start on September 28, 2022.
Thank you. Dr. Kabir, if you can hear me, it's now over to you. We would like to get a sense of what you think should happen. You've mentioned clearly the need to get an executive bill. We are looking at how to expedite this action now that it appears that everybody is on the same table. What can we practically do going forward? And is it possible to have all of these processes before the life of this administration runs out?
Okay, first off, let me be clear that from what we know, the presidency is not likely to submit an executive bill. Several times in the past, the presidency has been clear about its position on state policing. So I think that angle is foreclosed. That's why I hinged on the role of the governors, given their relationship with members of the National Assembly. Most governors either determine or to a great extent have a very good relationship between them and the serving senators and members of the House of Reps. So they can use that influence to ensure that the process, either one or a group of members or a group of senators sponsor bills and then lobby their colleagues to ensure a fast track. From a realistic point of view, I don't see the 9th Assembly carrying that process through. Perhaps we should be looking at the 10th Assembly. Now, having said that, there are pitfalls that we must avoid. One of those pitfalls is the control and the manipulation of the process by the governors themselves. One of the greatest fears against state policing is what happened in the First Republic, when some governors were seen to use the state apparatus to their advantage, especially against the opposition. So that is a pitfall that we must avoid. And frankly, looking at what we have at the moment, where most governors behave like emperors and the democratic tenets at the state level is almost zero, the checks and balances that should be in place from the state assemblies, from the judiciary at the state level, is almost non-existent, then that likelihood is huge. And so we must look at a model. Jide mentioned some international models that we can pick. One good model is the US model, where each of the subunits, so there's a federal police, there's a state police, there's a community police. In fact, in something as small as a university, you would have a police. But the jurisdiction of each of these levels of police is well spelled out. And to avoid the process where the state police is hijacked and controlled by the governors, as the case may be, what they do is to make the process of the appointment of the commissioner of police non-political, or in some instances, extremely political. So he runs for the office like the governor himself would run for the office. In other words, this commissioner of police will be voted in by the people in that community based on his credentials, what he has presented to them as the policing model that he would pursue. So let's use Sokoto as an example. If I want to run for commissioner of police in Sokoto, I'll publish my agenda, what I intend to do. The people will see it, and then they will vote me. Now, what that means is that the governor, whether he's, with whatever political party, it reduces the possibility that he can manipulate that process. So again, there are several models around the world that we can look at. Third point rather, is the capacity of the state. Jide mentioned this, and I think it's real. We also need to look at that. The institutions that are currently under the care of the state, if we use hospitals as an example, how good are the hospitals that are being managed by the state? So if we create state police, what are we likely to expect? The fourth point, the weaponry that may be managed or handled by this state police. Are we going to allow states to import weaponry? Again, my advice, if it comes to this, is not to allow that. Perhaps we can allow the control of weaponry to be managed by a federal body so that you have a balance. Otherwise, we may find ourselves in a situation where one state, for one reason or the other, a nationalist governor decides to say, call the bluff of the federal government, and then of course you have a civil war in our hands. So there are pitfalls that we need to look at carefully and avoid as we embark on these processes. The models that are out there in the world can be discussed, and then we look at the model, adapt it, that will be suitable for our purposes here in Nigeria.
Okay. Now let me direct this question at Mr. Zailani. Now, the Northern Elders Forum have said that the next administration should prioritize state police. Are we likely to see this, come through, or will this be an issue that would also be tossed to the side when the next administration comes in?
Thank you very much. I think this call is quite in order, and of course, the present administration, when it came in, we remember the zeal by President Muhammadu Buhari to ensure that the Nigerian police is, number one, taken care of appropriately in terms of their remuneration, in terms of their training, and in terms of their equipment. And quite all right, he has done a lot. And we know the constraints that are bedeviling most of the Nigerian system. But I think, depending on decisions of Nigerians at the polls by 2023, we are likely to see an improvement on what President Muhammadu Buhari has done, or we may see something different. What I want to advise states at this level is to follow the tools of my boss, Dr. Bello Mohamed Matawale, in ensuring that it complements the efforts of the Nigerian police in terms of security situations in their states. I know this debate will continue, the issue of state police and so on and so forth, but I think it's just like the issue of restructuring and other very thorny issues that have to do with the survival of Nigerian state. And we want to see a quick resolve of this problem and its takeoff so that the problems of security can be minimized in the country, because without security, in fact, there will be nothing. don't talk of health services, you don't talk of education, you don't talk of anything. We have seen that in Zamfara State. We have seen a situation where children cannot go to school. We have seen a situation where traders cannot go and buy things and sell. I've seen a situation where farmers cannot go to the farm. So in a situation where in a rural state, all these things are grounded, I find it difficult to understand how people can survive. And at the
Mr.
same time,
Zelani,
people are adopted. Yes.
I would like you to also respond to some of the issues that were raised by Dr. Kabir with regards to the lackluster we are likely to see from the presidency with regards to creating state police. I would also like you to respond to some of the concerns that were raised by Nigeria, especially when it comes to funding. We know these states as it is today with challenge financing barely struggle to pay the current civil servants they have, creating an under bureaucracy where they will be responsible for funding and payment of personnel and all of that. Is that something you think, for instance, a Zamfara state would be able to take on in addition to all of the things it is doing right now?
If I tell you a few things, you will understand that Zamfara state government, despite the fact that we are economically weaker than many other states, will be able to toe the line of progress in terms of security. For instance, today the Nigerian police in Zamfara state can confidently tell you what His Excellency has been doing in terms of support to them, because without the former commissioner of police who left Zamfara State said, without the support of His Excellency Dr. Bello Mohammed Matawalle, the police in Zamfara State could not even function. So which means that almost literally it is the state government that is shouldering the responsibilities of logistics of the police in terms of fighting terrorism in the state. And secondly, you know that some 2 years back, His Excellency has established the constabulary system. I mean, about 3,000 young able men were recruited, trained by the police to help the police also in complementing their efforts at ending banditry in the state. And even recently, His Excellency has established the Community Protection Guards, CPG, whom he has now started training. The police are training them. The first batch of 100 are undergoing training, and we are targeting at least 7,000 young men and women who will help the police, and they will be helped to acquire legally allowed weapons. And so far, His Excellency has even supplied them with their uniforms. He has supplied them with 1,500 motorcycles, supplied them with 20 Hilux buses to start operation. So what I'm saying is that no matter how poor the state is, I am confident that if the Nigerian state allows every state to establish its own police, no state will be unable to finance its police system, especially those who are facing serious security issues. I am telling you that public services are suffering in the Zamfara state because of security problem. All the resources that is coming into the state government is being channeled into security. You find little going into education, little going into health because of the problems we are facing. Because if you don't solve this problem, you cannot even talk about financing all other social services to make your life comfortable. So that is what people should understand. If security is taken to be serious, I'm telling you that no state will say it will not do it, and I am sure no state government will allow itself to be ridiculed at the end of its tenure if it cannot solve its security problem when it has the security operatives under its care. So my take here is that if the Nigerian state allows states to establish police services, and if it happens to be certainly desirable, And if all processes that are expected to be done are done carefully and appropriately, I am telling you that financing the institution is not going to be a problem, and the only problem might be managing it in terms of direction and in terms of instructions.
Right.
So I think, but yes, by and large, the Nigerian state, every state in Nigeria should be able to sustain its own police if it is allowed to establish one.
Right. Now, Mr. Jidija, I'm sure you'd like to respond to some of the comments he made.
Well, it's heartwarming that Zamfara State, with very little resources, is doing so much in terms of community policing, because that's what I will take what my elder brother there said they are doing. But we need to also scrutinize what Dr. Kabir Adamu said, that the president, and we know this for a fact, that President Buhari has not been inclined to support state police. His vice president has spoken glowingly about the need for state police, but the president has been no. And of course, if you ask the Nigeria Inspector General of Police, you say you don't need it. Just fund us more, give us more money, recruit more. But what we don't know is that, you cannot centrally police a huge country like this. So I feel two things need to happen. Yes, the rhetorics are now coming down. The next phase is action. But who will bail the cat? Can we have the Nigerian Governors Forum meeting with President Buhari to say, Mr. President, the die is cast. We need state police. Let this be part of your lasting legacy. This is restructuring that people have been demanding. Because he is on his way out, and he wants to be able to look back 10, 15, 20 years after he's left office and said, I got this done. So just like President Goodluck Jonathan signed the Freedom of Information Act on his way out, he can also be convinced. So it's not just meeting the senators and House of Reps members, because even if you do that, the buck stops at the president's table. If you fast-track the whole process and all the 36 state houses of assembly approves it like National Assembly, and it gets to the president's table and he said, well, I never believed in this. So the first political evangelism that needs to take place is to meet with the president, have a tete-a-tete with him, tell him of the desirability of this. And I still insist, if the president in premature is on this, if he's sold in, because I recall, my brother and sister, I recall that even the Attorney General Minister of Justice was against the setup of Amotekun Corps in Southwest, ab initio. But when the Southern governors came and they met with the president at the villa, and the Attorney General was there, he did a volte-face. He said, well, what could be done is to have a legal framework to establishing this. So what I'm saying is that let the president first be convinced, and once he's convinced, he will instruct the Attorney General. They look at different models, and I think the rest will, even if it's to set up the framework, the implementation can be with incoming administration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ojo. Mr. Kabir, I would like to get your final thoughts, and in doing so, within 30 seconds, I would like you to respond to what we are already seeing and the legality of how it's happening, because we know that state policing was not part of the initial items that were sent to the State Assembly for concurrence, but from nowhere, we are hearing that after a meeting, this is now on the table. How important is it that we stick to the legality of this process with regards to, first of all, expunging it from the exclusive list and all other process that needs to happen? I need you I need your response in the next 45 seconds, please.
So constitutionality is extremely important. Our existence as a country rides on that fact. And so anything we do must be guided by the provisions of the Constitution. And so we must go back to the Constitution. We must find a way, if, as a people, and I mean, we can't deny the fact that the Governors Forum is one of the most influential groups in the country. Now, they've also brought in the case of the non-traditional rulers, another very influential body. Now, I agree with Jide that we need the support of the presidency. But again, with or without the presidency, if the people of Nigeria decide that that's what they want, it's achievable. And that's why I talked about using the apparatus that exist within the National Assembly. There is no denying the fact that there will be, hiccups here and there. But once we start the process, even I mentioned earlier on that it's not possible to achieve that process within the ninth Assembly. I'm almost certain about that. But we can start that process, hopefully the 10th Assembly. And, we are fortunate in the sense that an election, this is a pre-election year. So we must find a way to ensure that state policing is part of the discussions agenda during the campaigns, so that all the major political parties have that element as part of their campaign issues, so that Nigerians can decide on the basis of what has been presented by the political parties.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning, and we hope to have you next time.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have had you all provide perspective to this program. Thank you, Mr. Jide Ojo, for the perspective you bring always, and always being there for our leader. I want to thank you, Marlon Zelani, for finding time to be part of us and bringing that whole state perspective to this conversation. We hope that in due course, as this issue develops, we will hear more from you.
It's been a pleasure seeing you again, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. This is where we draw the curtains for today's production. Thank you for allowing us into your rooms rent-free, and we hope that we have been able to make your morning one of a very delightful encounter with us. Hope to see you again tomorrow, where we bring you more interesting package. If you have missed any, please visit our social media handles and get an update on all that have been discussed, and even more interesting package that we'll have already served there. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
And I'm Zainab Bala. See you tomorrow.